Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to call the City of Homestead a Community Redevelopment Agency meeting to order. Today is September 3rd, 2024, and it is now 5:03 p.m. Would you please call the roll, Madam Clerk?
Board Member Davis. Here. Board Member Roth. Here. Board Member Bailey. Here. Board Member Cannibal. Here. Board Member Avila. Here. Vice Chairman Fletcher.
Here.
Chairman Lawson.
Here. All right, thank you. Are there any deletions or deferrals on tonight's agenda?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, we have before us tab 1, which are the minutes of July 17th, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve? It's moved by Board Member Bailey, seconded by Board Member Davis. No further comments. All in favor? Any opposed? Next item is tab 2, car number 4376, the CRA fiscal year 2025 budget. Mr. Pearl?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Tab 2 is a resolution of the Board of the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving the Community Redevelopment Agency budget for fiscal year 24-25 and directing the city manager or designee to submit the budget to Miami-Dade County and the City Council for their respective approval, providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Mr. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the proposed fiscal year 24-25 Community Redevelopment Agency budget focuses on the continuation of our successful commercial and residential grant programs, investments in infrastructure, neighborhood improvement projects, and the creation of economic opportunity. The Homestead CRA is required to have its budget approved by September 30th, 2024. It is staff's recommendation that the Community Redevelopment Agency Board approve the attached resolution approving the Homestead CRA annual budget for fiscal year 24-25, beginning October 1st, 2024, and ending September 30th, 2025. It is further recommended that the chairman and members of the board direct the city manager or his designee to submit the budget to the Homestead City Council for further approval. The proposed budget is a balanced budget of $10,424,313. And now I'll have a short presentation for you all to go into the budget in further detail.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Roll the tape, as they say.
So we're doing it live tonight.
Oh.
So just a quick overview of our agenda. We'll go into some of our accomplishments from this fiscal year, do an overview of the budget, and then take a deeper dive into the operations, programs, grants, infrastructure projects, neighborhood improvement projects, and land improvement projects. For this fiscal year, so far we have awarded 1 commercial enhancement grant, 3 residential rehabilitation grants, and 2 first-time homebuyer grants. We are expecting to present additional grants that are in the pipeline for your review and approval at the next CRA board meeting later this month. In our project milestones, we selected and commenced negotiations with the Triangle Project Development Partner, purchased and demolished blighted properties for the Triangle Project, initiated the Chrome Marketplace facility improvements, and the CRA board approved the Homestead Live concept site plan. And other initiatives that we've brought forth this year were the Pathways to Home Ownership. We received the Brownfields Grant Award, and we engaged in other community and development opportunities around CRA projects and opportunities for the community. As a reminder, it is the CRA mission to eliminate slum and blight, thereby increasing property valuations. So all of our programs, grants, and initiatives for the upcoming fiscal year will be in line with this overarching goal. The proposed budget, as I mentioned earlier, is a balanced budget of $10,424,313. That is approximately a 17% increase from the previous fiscal year. We break out these costs broadly into programs, projects, employee costs, operational costs, and then other administrative costs, which include our annual administrative payments to the Miami-Dade County. So our staffing and operations this year, we are presenting 2 additional positions. One is the Assistant Director for Redevelopment and Capital Projects. As you'll see, there are going to be many capital projects undertaken by the CRA. This position would complement our existing Assistant Director's concentration in operations with a further concentration on capital and redevelopment initiatives. We're also proposing the addition of a budget analyst who will be able to assist with ongoing compliance and financial obligations of the CRA. Under programs, we are allocating $435,516 for community policing innovations and code enforcement. This funds 2 community policing officers and 1 code compliance officer, which is consistent with previous fiscal years. In the upcoming fiscal year, our grant goals for our various programs include 5 commercial improvement grant awardees to commercial properties. Under business incentive grants, awarding $400,000 in incentives. Under residential rehabilitation, rehabilitating 10 homes. And under the first-time homebuyer program, assisting 6 first-time homebuyers. As a reminder / overview of our various programs, for business incentives, this is a flexible incentive for new and expanding businesses. We have budgeted $400,000 for that program in the upcoming year. For commercial grants, we have budgeted $125,000 for facade and accessibility improvements to existing businesses. And under our residential grants, we have allocated $230,000 for residential improvements and rehabilitation, as well as $100,000 for the first-time homebuyer assistance. In the upcoming fiscal year, our project goals are broadly broken out into infrastructure improvements, infrastructure planning, the Keep CRA Beautiful initiative, which is formerly known as Rock the Block, downtown homestead initiatives, and Southwest neighborhood initiatives. Each of these we'll talk a little bit more about in the upcoming slides. The only projects that we're not going to delve more deeply into are Triangle, Shotgun, and the Southwest New Homes projects. These are not included in this presentation because they are not anticipated to have a fiscal impact yet. So in infrastructure projects, our budget includes $500,000 for Southwest 4th Street electrical undergrounding, $640,000 for the Avocado Village potable water improvements, $120,000 for the 6th Avenue drainage improvements, $240,000 for undersized water main upgrades, $1.5 million for the Flagler Avenue gravity sewer main, and then $200,000 each for 3 citywide master plans, funding the CRA portion only, for stormwater, water and sewer, and transportation. So our electrical undergrounding, these are improvements to the electrical infrastructure along Southwest 4th Street that are going to assist with improving resilience and reliability for customers in this area. The infrastructure improvements, again, Avocado Village, this improves the potable water system within this Avocado Village neighborhood. The CRA funding serves as a match to other grant funds and will upgrade aged and insufficient water mains. The 6th Avenue drainage project improves stormwater drainage along 6th Avenue, which contributes to flood mitigation and resiliency during storm events. And the undersized water mains is an allocation for upgrading water mains throughout the CRA that are currently insufficient to meet the needs of modern homes and businesses. The Flagler Avenue gravity sewer main is going to address an extremely urgent infrastructure need. This is going to allow for homes and businesses to connect to sanitary sewer. The current main is undersized and does not meet future demand and recently suffered breaks, so this will be a very needed improvement. And what is also important about this project is that it coordinates with a planned Miami-Dade County roadway project so that we're able to complete our work just before they come in and do a resurfacing project, so we're not doing double work. Under neighborhood improvements, we have budgeted $92,500 for the Keep CRA Beautiful initiative, $964,000 for Crow Marketplace, $300,000 for Homestead Live, and $17,000 for Downtown Business Signage Phase 2. These are the identifier signs that you see on the businesses on Chrome Avenue. For Keep CRA Beautiful, we have identified 2 corridors. The Southwest 10th Avenue corridor is directly adjacent to the Shotgun property. So it's our plan that as we begin to market the Shotgun property for development opportunities, we'll also make an impact in the surrounding neighborhood by doing landscaping improvements, providing painting and other improvements to these homes. And similarly, Southwest 3rd Terrace is directly adjacent to the Triangle property. So as we begin to see movement on that project and on that site, we'll also be impacting the surrounding neighborhood with landscaping, painting, and other improvements. What's also important about Southwest 3rd Terrace is it's the location of the Ernestine Jackson Seymour Park, which is slated for a new playground in the upcoming fiscal year. Chrome Marketplace, this funding allocation is a continuance of the roof replacement that was authorized this year, so it's a carryover of funds as we enter the new fiscal year. The parking lot improvements, and then an allocation for tenant improvement contributions as we remarket this property and get a developer partner on board. And finally, Homestead Live. So the allocation here is for design services. In the upcoming fiscal year, we will be launching a solicitation for an operator/partner on this site. The intent is to actually bring our partner on board prior to the completion of architectural design services, so that we're not coming back with changes later once we have an operator on board who may like or dislike certain choices that were made. And in our land improvements, we have the allocation of $160,000 for the demolition of unsafe structures. This is an annual allocation that we make for various blighted structures throughout the CRA, and $420,000 for landscaping, which is also an annual contribution to landscaping within the CRA. And that's an overview of the proposed fiscal year 25 budget. I would like to thank you for your time this evening, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to address them. And if you please make a motion to approve our budget, we greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Appreciate it. We've taken it up quite a few notches this year on all of our budget presentations thus far. So I'll open it up to board questions or comments. Who would like to kick it off? Board Member Roth?
Yeah, I don't have a question as much as about the budget, but infrastructure, you mentioned the sewer improvements and enhancements, and this is maybe directed towards staff. Maury to the south, Campbell to the north, US 1 to the east, and Flagler to the west. Are there any properties that are not able to connect to sewer system currently in those areas? Because that's an area that I think we're looking at for some development to take place, but if there's no access to sewer there, it causes problems. So maybe we need to look at that.
Thank you, Council Member. We actually, in the Committee of the Whole, there is one of the items we're going to bring to Council is a new infrastructure master plan that determines what is the baseline, what do we have in the ground today, what do we need to see at least for a 20-year period to make sure we don't keep coming back to Council every other year to ask for infrastructure improvements. Once the master plan is finalized for the infrastructure side of it, which is water and sewer and stormwater and transportation, then we'll be able to make a projection how we can face the capital improvements. To answer your question directly, whether there is any property today that's unable to connect, that's something that we need to check on our records to determine. Having said all that, I think one of the biggest pivots in all this is once we have this master plan in place, we should be able to begin to fund them moving forward. The reason we're targeting the one on Flagler Street is that pipe had broken twice, spilling sewage on the street. You don't want Miami-Dade County Water and Sewer to come back with a new moratorium. So we'll have to fast track that. We're hoping to give the consultant, I believe we gave them 9 months to finalize the water and sewer master plan, so that by sometime middle of next year, we should be able to have a clearer picture as to what the city's state of the art is in terms of what we have available and what needs to be done. Thank you.
That was all. Thank you.
Answer your question. Okay, very good.
It's coming.
Very good, okay. Board Member Davis.
Mayor, I'd like to make a suggestion, and that at this point, the CRA, we're going to have a new director, we're going to have 2 new major employees. I think it would be a very good time for us to do a process improvement review, some may call it an audit, just to get a good foundational moment for all the new people that are coming on board to the CRA. This is where you stand, and I think that could be a very valuable thing for us to consider.
Mr. Manager, would you like to address that?
Yes, actually, you took the words out of my mouth. We actually had requested the city's internal auditor, RSM, to give us a proposal to look at our whole city process improvement measures in terms of grant applications and the way we've managed grants, as well as now that you've brought up CRA, we work together with the CRO folks to create a proper baseline in terms of past practices. What are the best practices for moving forward? Where have we done well? Where do we need improvement? With the condition and subject to the consultant giving us a template on how we can improve ourselves. I don't want a consultant coming here and telling me you've done bad here, you didn't do well here. What do I need to do to self-improve? Which is the main issue that I need to get addressed.
Hear what you needed to hear, Board Member Davis?
Agreed. I think that's exactly what we need to do.
Very good, thank you. Council Board Member Bailey?
Thank you. Exciting stuff again. I think my only question is regarding the traffic study, which I'm sure we are all very excited about. And seeing that this is split between different areas, does that mean that if for some reason other areas aren't ready or able to start yet, we could start within the CRA to have those traffic studies completed?
So the intent is for this to be a citywide master
Right.
plan. We'll defer to the consultants as far as methodology, if they're going to concentrate in one area and move systematically, or if they'll be rolling out their studies citywide. But definitely we'll be working with the Public Works Department to make sure that this gets done
So step
expeditiously.
1 is citywide. Step 1 is a citywide master plan.
Yes, and the CRA contribution will be part of
Right.
that master plan.
Okay, thank you. That's my only question.
So,
Okay, thank you.
Council Member, can I, in the committee of the whole, there is an item for the transportation master plan tonight for council to approve that so that the consultant can start work immediately. We are very mindful of the fact that there is a deadline set, which is the building moratorium. So all these master plans, we expect all of them to be done prior to the expiration of the moratorium.
That's great to hear. I just thought if there was an opportunity to, this BRT hopefully is going to be working as well as they promised soon. So I thought if there was an opportunity to start within the CRA and make sure that that was going smoothly. But no, I do understand the need for a citywide. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Board Member Avila?
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask, with regards to the infrastructure projects, are any of these underfunding where an item won't be completed 100% in 2025?
So as far as the funding amount, these are all complementing general fund projects or grant-funded projects that we intend to have the full amount. But for instance, the undersized water mains is an example where that may be an ongoing project. As we see the needs identified by the master plan, there may be future year allocations needed.
Okay, and then are there any areas within the budget that you feel might be able to use additional funds to achieve the mission, the CRA mission? And I'm just putting into perspective that we've got about $900,000 in the grant programs, which I love the purpose behind the grant programs, but I don't think that we have year after year fully funded those grant initiatives. And so what I don't want to do is underfund other areas of the budget where we could be maximizing our purpose and our mission because we have almost $1 million allocated somewhere else. So just food for thought. Is this a one hearing?
Can I come in?
Yes.
So one of the new initiatives I've rolled out in the city since I came on board is the dual process of budgeting. This month, you're going to approve the city's budget for fiscal year 25. We will come back in 6 months for what we call a mid-year budget amendment. That's when you capture areas that you've underfunded or overfunded and make adjustments. So if the CRA is also seeing that kind of trend, at the mid-year budget amendment is an opportunity to fix those challenges.
I love that opportunity. Thank you. I'll rest there.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Chair?
Yes, I want to thank staff for putting this presentation together. Again, a lot more detail this time than previous. As for the only main question I had is the downtown business signs phase 2. How many total phases are there?
So this phase 2 will be capturing infill along the current corridor between Maori and 2nd. In the following fiscal year, we'll evaluate whether those signs are going to be expanded to north to 4th Street in order to capture the remainder of the historic district.
Okay, thank you. I did have a discussion last week with Assistant City Manager Kumar Brown on just general signage and branding of the city of Homestead, and I think we're all going to come back to another workshop here in the near future to look at how we can make those things very cohesive. So just keep that in the back of your mind, but other than that, very good presentation here. Thank you.
And let me piggyback on that for clarification. That phase, the $17,000 of phase 2, that's for the individual business signage, correct? Not the wayfinding sign.
Yes, that's
But
correct.
typically, the black and white signage of various shapes is chosen by the businesses. Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, very good. Board Member Cannonball, anything to add? No? Okay, a couple of quick questions. And I want to be sure that I heard right or we have some clarification. Are we going to are we going to pause the design services on Homestead Live pending bringing in a partner? I mean, I don't know why we would want to expend anything further until we had a potential operator in place.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so it's not we're just going to do a little bit more and then wait. We're not going to do a complete pause. All right, and then a little bit to piggyback up on comments from everyone else. You know, the $230,000 that you have budgeted for residential, that's for next year. That's not anything that's in the pipeline, correct? You
That's
already
correct.
Okay, so here's my question to council. I just wanted to see where your thoughts were on this. Move that entire allocation for the residential upgrades to the economic incentive category. I mean, in the next few months, we're going to have another sit down with the charrette people. We've got Business Flair working, and just thinking out loud, I'm wondering if we need to have a deeper treasure chest to help incentivize and attract businesses. The residential program has seemed to be very unwieldy and very slow moving. And I just, wonder what any thoughts or preference would be for, either eliminating it for a year or paring it down somewhat in order to enhance our economic development side of the house.
And before Council opines, we're definitely open to making those changes. I would like to advocate for the continued funding of the program, whether that's at a reduced level from the intended 10 awards. But I believe it is a much needed program, especially for our elderly and low-income residents, and those who may be facing code compliance challenges in the next fiscal year, and, well, frankly now, it's our intent to work closely with code compliance to make sure that as part of their enforcement efforts, they're also educating that there is the ability for these residential improvement grants to help cure some of those code violations like fences, windows, roofs, those kinds of minimum housing standards.
All right, but that's not really the angle we've seen in the past. That has been folks coming in saying, we need a new roof, or we'd like to have impact windows, or we want to replace a fence. I don't recall that there's ever been a component of those applications that this will help bail us out of a code enforcement issue. And I'm all for helping folks who don't have the ability to come into compliance. But that's not my feeling of what we've seen in the program in the past.
And that's a
That a fair assessment?
Exactly, that's a fair assessment, and that's a new strategy as we've seen the interest in the program, not necessarily be as high this year. We've decided that it would be a good idea to use this additional tactic to help bring properties into the kind of repair that we need to see.
So generally, is it a flat amount? Is it a limit of 15 or is it a limit of 20 per house?
It is a limit of $20,000 per house. The board a few months ago made that change. It used to be 15.
Okay, all right. So, as you said, this is generally 10 properties.
Yes.
I'm torn. I really want to see some meaningful economic development that will create jobs to allow folks to do their own repairs and maintenance. Board Member Avila?
Thank you, Chair. I'm fine with reducing that to, let's say, 100,000 and pumping the rest into the business incentive. But the caveat is that we need to monitor it closely, because with the new code enforcement director online and with rules being enforced, we need to be kind of sensitive to that. And I'm gearing more towards having more grace and favor for the elderly in those cases. But with the mid-year review, we can certainly revise that if necessary. But I agree. I like the idea of pumping up the business incentives and seeing how we can bring more economic development to the CRA. Thank you.
And thank you. And with the caveat that we're going to focus on folks who have elderly with code enforcement issues that we would help repair. All right. So very good. So when it comes time to adopt this, we'll look for that amendment to move that money around. Board Member Davis.
Yes, sir. I mean, I'm in complete agreement with my colleague that we can reassess this movement at a later time based on the quantifiable need, because we do need to bring those businesses in. We hear it all the time, and we need to do something valuable to bring that about. So shifting that money at this point, reevaluating at a later date, if we have those elderly outside of code compliance, that money goes right back into that pot again to help those folks out. I think that's a good way to utilize that money.
Thank you. All right, so let me open this up to the public now and ask if there is anyone who would like to comment with respect to the proposed CRA budget. This is not general fund, but the CRA, but go on down.
Susan Sorrentino, 2610 Northeast 3rd. I just have a question about CRA budgeting. Does that fix the sidewalks on Chrome? I trip every time I walk a block. It might be my clumsy feet, but I think it's the pavers are popping up. That's
You're talking
all.
about downtown?
Yeah.
The pavers? Well, as a side issue, we have a federal transit grant. Those are all going to be removed with a smooth, replaced with a smooth surface.
Okay.
So I guess the short answer is no, but we're not unmindful of that.
Okay. Thank you.
That's in the works.
I don't want to break a hip. Thank you.
No, we don't want you to either. All right. Is there anyone online? Anyone else wishing to speak on the proposed CRA budget? All right, I'll close the public hearing then and ask for a motion to approve the budget as may be amended pursuant to the comments that we had here tonight. As amended with the movement of $130,000 from the residential improvement into the economic incentives. Okay.
Can I second
Sure.
with the request that 6 months from now, when we're reevaluating the budget, that you let us know how it is going with those residential? I know that there are times where we have a bunch and they're all easily put through, and then there are other times that a lot of people aren't qualifying for whatever reason. So if we see that there is a big need and they're going well, we can reassess at that
Yeah,
time.
let's don't tell folks we're out of money when that 100 is committed. Let's continue so that we can have that report. Okay, are there any further comments? Councilman, all right, well, you're going to second it. It's already been moved. Okay. So, all in favor? Well, let's see. Do we need a roll call on that one? I don't think so. Do we? Nope. I think we can have a roll call on the approval of the budget as amended on first reading of the CRA. So let's have a roll call.
Board Member Davis? Yes. Board Member Cannavale? Yes. Board Member Roth? Yes. Board Member Avila? Yes. Board Member Bailey? Yes. Vice Chairman Fletcher?
Yes.
Chairman Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
All right. What do we, no. Okay. Is there anything further from this board for the CRA? Further reports? Any further public comments? A motion to adjourn? Moved by Board Member Bailey, seconded by Board Member Avila. All in favor? All right, the CRA meeting stands adjourned, and we will convene the committee of the whole meeting in about 5 minutes. Thank you all. I'm sorry, special call. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the City of Homestead special call council meeting to order for the purpose of considering on first reading the fiscal year 2024-2025 public. This is our first public budget hearing. Today is September 3rd, and 2024, and it is now 5:41 p.m. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Councilman Roth? Here. Councilwoman Avila? Here. Councilman Cannavale? Here. Councilman Davis? Here. Councilwoman Bailey? Here. Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Here.
Mayor Losner?
I'm here. Mr. Manager, are there any additions, deletions, or deferrals?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Attorney.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have to read the following statement into the record as we begin the proceedings. The City of Homestead's proposed operating millage rate is 5.9604 mils, which is 1% less than the previous year's millage rate of 6.0206 mils, and the proposed voted debt millage rate is 0.0258 mils. The rolled back millage rate is 5.014 mils. The proposed operating millage rate of 5.9604 mils is 18.88% above the rollback rate of 5.0140 mils.
Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Manager, I understand you might have a presentation on the budget.
Yes, sir. Before we roll into the presentation, I crave your indulgence to make a quick, brief remarks. Over the past 4 months, our administration has been dedicated to ensuring that our budget reflects the City of Homestead's core values, priorities, resiliency programming, in order to secure the essential services that keep our city thriving. I'm incredibly proud of what we've achieved in this short period of time, including the preparation of a balanced budget of $274 million, approximately, which is strategically designed to support our city's growth and essential services. This budget is carefully allocated to meet the diverse needs of our community. The general fund is set at $77.9 million and supports essential city services, while we continue to revitalize our neighborhoods. Electric utility, which is a critical service for our residents, is funded at $85 million approximately, and the water and sewer fund starts at $28.196 million, facilitating ongoing infrastructure improvements. Additionally, the solid waste fund is allocated at $18.863 million to maintain a clean environment, and the health self-insurance fund is set at $10.88 million to ensure the well-being of our employees and our government officials. The remaining $42.624 million comes from various other funding sources. In terms of infrastructure, we've made significant progress, particularly in addressing long-standing issues within our sanitary collection system. Following the consent agreement with Miami-Dade County, Durham, we have successfully lifted 2 of the 7 affected pump stations out of moratorium and working strenuously on the most important pump station, which is pump station 22. I'm proud and happy to announce that the contractor is scheduled to commence work sometime in the next 1 week or thereabouts. This is part of a broader infrastructure master plan, which is going to come before council later tonight with the consideration of a transportation master plan for approval so that the consultant can get onto it. And subsequent to that, we are coming back with a stormwater and water and sewer master plans that will be coming before council for approval as well. These plans will enable us to proactively address infrastructure needs in the city to ensure that our roads and sidewalks meet community needs while enhancing our city's resilience. Looking ahead, one of our most ambitious projects is the redevelopment of the Greater Homestead Regional Park, the AKA Homestead Sports Complex. This 85-acre site, poised to become a premier sports and recreation facility, represents approximately $63 million investment in our city's future. The park will be developed in phases, and we'll be looking towards securing necessary funding from granting agencies for this major undertaking. We are actively pursuing multiple avenues to ensure that this vision can be realized. In the coming year, our focus will be on optimizing processes to better serve our residents and businesses. Making services accessible online 24/7 is critical. Making our services available online 24/7 is crucial as we drive economic development. Empowering our customer service team to provide same-day connections will provide Homestead as a preferred place to live and raise families. Our new citywide permitting, code compliance, licensing, and online payment processing solutions will also add in enhancing efficiencies. Additionally, providing an online platform for prospective candidates to apply for city jobs will help attract the best and brightest public service professionals. Organizational alignment, innovation, and strategic planning are central to our approach for city's future. This budget includes several personnel enhancements across multiple departments, including transitioning some of the part-time employees into full-time city job positions. We are also reactivating the General Services Department to oversee fleet, facilities management, and asset management and maintenance, while renaming several departments to better align with their evolving roles, mandates, and functions. Finally, we are prioritizing pursuing grant opportunities. In order to maintain this momentum, this budget proposes creating a dedicated grants administration and management division within the city manager's office that will be responsible for administering the citywide grant process. The recent Spaceport designation offers new opportunities for economic growth and innovation, further enhancing our city's process. As we look forward to the new fiscal year, I'm excited about the transformative projects and improvements that we've planned for Homestead. Our staff has laid the groundwork for a productive, impactful year on all fronts, ensuring that we continue to provide exceptional municipal services in a financially and environmentally conscious manner. I conclude this budget remarks with deep gratitude for the opportunity to serve as your city manager. But more importantly, I thank the mayor and council for their clear direction and confidence in my leadership. And I extend my deep, profound appreciation to our city staff, and especially the directors, for their tireless efforts in delivering services, stellar services to our residents, businesses, and visitors, with a promise that we can do better. Together, we will continue to make Homestead a better place to live, work, and thrive. Thank you. Mr. Finance Director.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and residents of the City of Homestead. Tonight's presentation will provide an overview of the fiscal year 2025 proposed budget, as well as the proposed millage rate used to develop the general fund's proposed budget. Under our new leadership, the goals and objectives for this budget lays the groundwork for exciting changes in the City of Homestead. Changes that will create a framework where both council and staff can work for a common cause, which is to provide the best services possible to the residents of this great city while spending wisely, building safely, and always serving proudly. The goals and objectives include a 3 to 5 year strategic plan that is vital for any organization as it provides a clear roadmap for achieving long-term goals. It helps align resources, priorities, and actions with the organization's vision and mission. By setting measurable objectives and outlining key initiatives, the strategic plan ensures that all team members are working toward the same goals, fostering collaboration and efficiency. To enable a more resilient and sustainable infrastructure, the administration has identified the need for a comprehensive infrastructure master plan, which will have 3 components: a water and sewer master plan, transportation master plan, and a stormwater master plan. Organization realignment includes the renaming of several departments to align them with their core mandates, creating new separate departments and divisions while shifting other divisions under better suited oversight, establishing full-time leadership presence in development services and the city attorney's office. The implementation of a citywide permitting, code compliance, and licensing solution will revitalize the way the city handles permits, code compliance violations, and business licenses. Staffing enhancements is critical to a growing city. Investing in its existing staff, as well as providing much-needed human resources to many departments of the city, will ensure their success and, in turn, the overall success of the city. And finally, the City Council has provided clear direction on its desire for the city to achieve a possible reduction to the millage rate. This proposed budget is a result of the combined efforts of staff and the council to address the operational needs of the entire city without raising the millage rate. The presentation will focus on the following areas of the budget: a general fund overview, citywide overview, citywide CIP projects overview, staffing enhancements, proposed millage rate, and a recap. So now let's look at the general fund budget overview. Property taxes to the city are a result of 2 components: property values and the millage rate, also known as the tax rate. Property values are assessed by the county, not the city. The Miami-Dade County Property Appraiser's Office is responsible for assessing property values. This slide represents calculations based on the values certified by the county on July 1st, 2024. The city assesses the millage rate, which represents the amount to be paid for every $1,000 of property's taxable assessed value. It is important to note that the operating millage rate only impacts the revenues of the general fund and the CRA. As you can see, the city is recommending a 1% reduction in the millage rate, which, based on the July 1st, 2024 certified values, results in property tax revenues of $30,931,507 for the general fund. This reflects an increase in property tax revenues of $5,047,152. On July 18, 2024, one day after the council approved the tentative millage rate of 6.0206, we were notified by the Miami-Dade County Property Appraiser's Office of an error made with the certified values. The slide above reflects what the anticipated revised values will be when these values are certified as final in October 2024. The revised increase in property values will be 11.3%, not 19.7%, as shown on the previous slide. With a 1% reduction in the millage rate, the city's property tax revenues are expected to be $28,529,187, which still represents a $2,644,832 increase over the prior year. However, this $2.4 million is lower than the tax revenues based on the July 1st, 2024 certified values. As a result of the 1% reduction to the millage rate, there is a $24,264 difference in the estimated non-spendable tax revenues. The fiscal year 2025 proposed budget has been developed with the $2,426,584 in property tax revenues as being non-spendable and with an offsetting amount in the contingency account. Staff plans to propose a budget amendment in October 2024 to reflect the revised revenues and expenditures resulting from the expected change in the property values. At that time, we can account for the estimated $24,264 difference as additional contingency. This is an overview of the general fund sources of revenues. Please note that this is based on a total general fund budget of $77.94 million, which includes the $2.4 million in non-spendable funds. This is being done because technically this is our proposed budget based on the certified values. Rest assured that the budget was developed without the use of the $2.4 million, as you will see in the upcoming slides. Much of the discussion regarding the general fund's budget involves property taxes, also known as ad valorem taxes, which make up just over 39% or $30.9 million of the funding for the proposed budget. The state shared revenues make up approximately 20% of the general fund's revenues. The state shared revenues include municipal revenue sharing of $4.9 million, communication service tax of $1.9 million, and the half-cent sales tax of $8.5 million. Combined, these account for $15.3 million. These are estimates provided by the state. Franchise fee includes $1.2 million in fees being generated from the FP&L serviced areas of the city. These funds were previously remitted to the county as part of an agreement when the city annexed the area from the county. Cost allocations and pilots, also referred to as intergovernmental charges, are funds paid to the city primarily from the 4 enterprise funds for use of city services and at the cost of doing business within the city. Together, these make up 22% of the general fund's revenues. Other revenues represent just under 5% of the general fund's revenues, and these include rents, leases, and interest income on investments. Here is an overview of the general fund's budget by functions. Public safety represents just over 46.9% of the general fund's budget. Parks makes up approximately 8.6%, while building and planning and public works comprise 6.4% and 2.7% respectively. Code compliance, a new department created by moving a division out of the police department, represents 2.5% of the general fund budget. The rest of the departments are general government, making up 32% of the budget. Transfers to other funds includes $400,000 portion of the debt service on the PTP bonds for the multimodal transit center project, $111,000 to the home fund, and $169,000 to the CIP fund. Please note that the police budget is at $36.5 million, while property taxes, without the library taxes, are at only approximately 28.5% based on anticipated revised revenues. Therefore, property taxes cover only 78% of the police budget. This slide provides a side-by-side comparison of each general fund department's prior year adopted to current year proposed budgets. Total increase is 12.76%. However, without the impact of the $2.4 million non-spendable portion, the increase to the general fund is really 9.25%. As stated earlier, upon being informed by the county of the issues with the property values, staff made sure that the $2.4 million was deemed non-spendable. Because our budgeted property tax revenues must agree with the DR 420 forms required by the state under TRIM, we had to include the $2.4 million as part of the property tax revenues, with an offsetting expenditure of the same amount set aside in the contingency account to ensure it would not be considered for spending in developing the budget. The significant increases in the general fund expenditures will be based on the spendable increase of $6,391,984. Based on the spendable increase, the highlighted changes in the general fund expenditures are as follows. $2.5 million investment in new staffing. Later in the presentation, we provide the detail of the new positions. $1.4 million increases to existing personnel costs for merit or step increases and enhanced compensation or benefits. $542,000 increase in the police and fire pass-through pension costs. This has a matching revenue source from the insurance tax premiums. A reduction of $325,000 for the elections, a cost incurred every other year. Besides new personnel and capital improvement projects, which will be discussed on later slides, other increases for operations include, for Public Works, a $108,000 increase for roadway and sidewalk improvement CIPs, $100,000 for project and CIP management consulting. For General Administration, $80,000 for consultant for Community Development Division, $85,000 for a consultant for Strategic Planning Initiative, $50,000 for the Family Stabilization Program, a homelessness initiative, and $42,000 for other consulting. For the Police Department, $236,000 for the 5th year of the body camera contract, which is no longer funded by a grant. $210,000 for the shot spotter contract, which is no longer funded by a grant. $79,000 for computer and server replacements. $110,000 as the estimated fiscal year 2025 cost for the equipment financing for the replacement of 13 Explorers as patrol vehicles. $53,000 for increases to various other contracts. For code compliance, $11,000 is the estimated fiscal year 2025 cost for the equipment financing for 2 new code vehicles for 2 new hires from the prior year. For parks, recreation, and open spaces, $65,000 for increased supplies and repairs. For development services, $59,000 increase to contracts for inspection services. $50,000 for a consultant to perform structural plan reviews. $50,000 for an arborist as a consultant. $12,000 for an SHI subscription, and $154,000 in other operational enhancements. For procurement, $53,000 for a bids administrator as a contract temp position, $25,000 for OpenGov training seminars on the procurement module, $19,000 for increase in property insurance. For the Innovation and Technology Department, $43,000 for the NetMotion software for network security, $35,000 for the Exchange online migration, $70,000 for various contracts and subscription-based information technology agreements. For finance and budget, $40,000 for a cost allocation study, $50,000 for OpenGov expert services on the budget module, $95,000 for accounting automation and other professional services. For human resources, $51,000 for a new applicant tracking software, $55,000 for a compensation and benefits survey, which is usually done every 5 years. For special events, staff has reprogrammed $25,000 for a National Day of Prayer concert event, along with the existing $10,000 for a donation to a non-for-profit organization. City staff also recommends the unfunding of $80,000 for the New Year's Eve event in the fiscal year 2025 budget, but to possibly revisit this at a future time. A $31,000 increase to other events, providing for unforeseen events that may arise during the year. On a separate slide, we will provide a listing of all existing special events as funded and with some council recommendations to be considered. The Parks Department has asked for small increases to 3 events that include funding through parks. These include Holiday and Homestead, the Spring Event, and the Halloween event. Finally, the last change includes a $169,000 transfer for the CIP fund to fund existing equipment financing leases and 3 procurement projects, and a one-time transfer of $111,000 to the new home fund, and net miscellaneous reductions of $16,000 to account for the $6,391,984 increase in the budget. Comparing the proposed and spendable fiscal year 2025 general fund budget to the 2024 adopted budget, there is an increase of $6,391,984. We have the same amount in increased revenues to cover the general fund budget for 2025. The increased revenues are primarily due to increases in certain major revenue sources shown on the slide. The most significant increase is from property tax revenues. The $2,620,568 in spendable property tax revenues accounts for over 40% of the total increases. The increased property tax revenues are primarily the result of increased property values. One significant revenue source is the FP&L franchise fee, which represents over 19% of the increase in revenues. Representing a little over 9% of the revenue increases are increases from the municipal revenue sharing and the half-cent sales tax. The city relies on the estimates provided from the state for these revenues. $542,000 of the increase is from the insurance tax premium funds, which are used to pay the police and fire pass-through pension costs. Part of the general fund's budget includes the fiscal year 2025 impact for CIP projects being approved as part of the proposed budget. The total cost of the projects are $1,315,727, but through some financing, the impact of the fiscal year 2025 budget is $291,142. To summarize, this includes 2 new vehicles for the Code Compliance Department for 2 new hires from the prior year, 13 replacement vehicles for the Police Department along with computer and server replacements, costs to cover the electrical and structural migration costs related to the 40-year recertification, and an industrial ceiling fan for the warehouse at procurement, partial funding for a parks project. These are just the CIPs funded by the general fund. In a later slide, we will see an overview of all CIPs funded for fiscal year 2025. This slide shows the special events budgets for fiscal year 2025. As stated earlier, the highlighted amounts reflected small increases requested by parks. Additionally, the New Year's Eve event has been unfunded for 2025, and the other events shows an increase of $31,000 over the prior year to provide for any unforeseen events during the year. On this slide, we show some recommended changes suggested by members of council that staff would like a consensus from council before finalizing the proposed budget. The current recommendations include adding another event at $25,000 for the Haitian Heritage Month and $6,000 for Pictures with Santa for 2 weekends. These would be funded by reductions to the other events line and therefore has no net budgetary impact. 2 other recommendations would use funds from other events to increase the parade sponsorship for the Veterans Day Parade, currently at $3,000, and to add a sponsorship for the South Dade Connections in the amount of $10,000. These last 2 would reduce the total special events budget from $580,000 to $563,000, and conversely, increase the public relations account by $17,000. We have seen an overview of the general fund. Now let's look at an overview of the entire citywide budget. This pie chart reflects the components of the enterprise funds. These funds are intended to be self-sufficient and rely on user fees to balance their budgets. The electric utility makes up over 62% of the enterprise funds. For fiscal year 2025, the solid waste fund has been balanced with a rate increase of 4.57%, representing the CPI increase. Last year, Council approved an annual rate increase based on the CPI index with no need for further Council action. For 2025, the water and sewer budget has been balanced with a proposed rate increase of 4.57%, representing the CPI increase, and a 0.2613% increase representing the Miami-Dade County pass-through rate increases for the purchase of water and the treatment of sewer. These will be two separate car items for council consideration at tonight's budget hearing pursuant to state statutes. The electric utility reflects the reappropriation of $6.2 million of remaining FMPA loan proceeds for 4 capital projects to be continued or completed in fiscal year 2025. In fiscal year 2021 and 22, the electric utility secured loans in excess of $12 million to invest in the capital projects to improve the capacity, resiliency, and redundancy of Homestead's electric grid. These projects are currently underway and will provide the capacity to serve future projected electrical demand growth, as well as hardening the electrical grid to better withstand the effects of severe weather. Last year, the stormwater utility included $760,000 in appropriation of fund balance in order to fund the matching portion of a drainage project on 6th Avenue. That is also funded with a grant. Electric utility debt service funds reflects a debt service for a new bank loan approved in fiscal year 2024, while the utilities replacement, renewal, and improvements fund reflects a transfer of $500,000 to fund CIPs in the electric utility. This pie chart shows the citywide budget broken down by fund types. The general fund makes up just over 28% of the city's budget, while the enterprise funds make up 49.8% of the budget. Please remember that this proposed budget excludes CDBG, home, and other grants, as those budgets are approved by resolution upon acceptance of the grants. Additionally excluded is the ARPA funding that is also being treated as a grant. Staff continues to work with council on identifying proposed projects to be funded by ARPA, and most recently approved the reallocation of over $9.6 million in ARPA funding for several projects. Some of those projects will be reflected in the city's fiscal year 2025 CIP plan. I would like to point out that unused funds for certain capital-related projects, like the Cybarium, will be brought forth to council for reappropriation and amendment of the 2025 budget at the November 2024 council meeting. This slide reflects a comparison of the citywide fiscal year 2024 adopted budget with the fiscal year 2025 proposed budget. The general fund, as well as all the enterprise funds, have been discussed in earlier slides. Notable highlights for the remaining funds include the internal service funds, which includes the health insurance fund, which reflects an 8% increase in the citywide health insurance premiums, a 20% increase in the citywide property and liability insurance premiums. The CRA fund shows an increase in the budget as a result of increased TIF funds due to the increased property values. In fiscal year 2025, TIF funds are budgeted at $6 million, $2.6 million from Miami-Dade County, $3.4 million from the city. Additionally, there is $4 million in appropriation of fund balance from previously unused funds. Earlier tonight, you saw a detailed presentation on the CRA's budget. PTP fund reflects transportation surtax revenues of $4.8 million anticipated for fiscal year 2025. Additionally, the fund reflects a reappropriation of $4.8 million of unused funds from previous years. Other notable highlights include the impact fee funds revenue projections for 2024 have been lowered, but for 2025 projections reflect increases over the prior years. The proposed budget also reflects reappropriation of unused funds from prior years. The CIP plan reflects many impact fee funded projects, while some funding has been set aside as contingency for future uses. We have looked at an overview of the citywide budget. Now let's take a look at the citywide CIP projects for fiscal year 2025. These following slides represent a recap of the city's capital improvement projects. These are projects that required funding in fiscal year 2025. It does not include projects previously funded in a prior year. Water and sewer projects include $6 million in grant funding for Pump Station 22, $1.5 million in CRA funding to replace a gravity sewer line on Flagler Avenue from Northeast 8th Street to Chrome Avenue. $1.25 million in ARPA funding for various vehicle and equipment replacements, and $879,000 in various water and sewer funded projects, including the rehabilitation of trenches and upgrades to lift stations 9 and 35. The $4.2 million in electric utility projects includes over $1.8 million in annual recurring projects, along with another $2.4 million for 19 other capital projects. During the year, the utility will still be working on 4 significant projects funded with loans. $6.2 million in appropriated fund balance representing loan funds to be expended on these projects have been included in the fiscal year 2025 budget. Transportation and transit equipment and streets and sidewalk improvements include projects funded primarily with LOGT and PTP funds. In addition to $1.4 million in annual recurring projects, the most notable projects for 25 include $550,000 for the purchase of a new trolley and $350,000 for stamped concrete work on Washington Avenue. The Parks Department includes $1.7 million in projects funded with parks impact fees for playground renovations and expansions at Audubon, Whitcock, and James Archer Smith Parks, a new large pavilion at Roscoe Warren Park, upgrades to the Harris Field Gymnasium lighting, and Phase 2 design of the Greenway Trail. $217,000 in ARPA funding is earmarked for 3 projects, including improvements at J.D. Red Park. And finally, we were able to fund $414,000 for the roof at the FOP Lodge, a rear drainage system at Seminole Theater, and 2 other projects, primarily with $392,000 in savings generated when the city leveraged alternative purchasing tools for roof replacements capital projects earlier this year. For the police department, it includes $846,000 in equipment funded with police impact fees. The new equipment includes $415,000 for 5 new vehicles for the 5 new police officers proposed to be hired in 2025. And the remaining $431,000 in impact fees will be used to fund 2 crime scene light towers, a crime scene vehicle, message boards with trailers, a new canine vehicle, and a new gun detection dog. Forfeiture monies are being used to fund $145,000 for the floor replacement of the indoor basketball court at the Powell Gym, $14,000 for a traffic unit drone, and $35,000 for replacement of existing message boards. $20,000 in ARPA funding is earmarked for the replacement of a utility cart. Other CIPs include $79,000 for annual computer and server replacements, as well as the replacement of 13 vehicles for patrol. The vehicles are valued at $997,000, but will be financed over 5 years. The Solid Waste Fund includes $252,000 for a self-loader truck, $250,000 for a parking lot resurfacing project, and $384,000 for other projects and equipment. Stormwater includes $320,000 in CRA funding and $200,000 in stormwater funds for a stormwater master plan and funding assistance for the 6th Avenue Drainage Project. Annual stormwater projects include $75,000. $100,000 has been appropriated from art and public places. The Public Art Committee proposes spending the accrued public art funds. Finally, equipment, software, and improvements for various other departments include $272,000 in ARPA funds for computer and server replacements by the IT department, $70,000 in improvements at the procurement facility, and for the citywide permitting code and licensing software, the city has earmarked $400,000 in ARPA funds and an existing $138,000 in CIP funds. For code compliance, 2 vehicles valued at $99,000 will be financed over 5 years. Total CIP values for 2025 are $23,502,611, with over $3.6 million representing recurring annual projects, over $8 million of these projects being funded by ARPA or other grants, and another $1.1 million expected to be financed over 5 years, resulting in a budgetary impact of $121,000 in debt service for 2025. A detailed listing of the 2025 capital improvement projects, as well as the fiscal year 2025-2029 5-year CIP plan, can be found at the end of your budget books. These next few slides will identify the investment the city is making in new staffing, upgrades to existing positions, and conversion of some contract temp positions to full-time positions. All these staffing changes are intended to help bring about the initiatives and goals of the city. Proposed staffing enhancements for the general fund includes staffing for the city attorney's office to bring about a full-time on-site presence, a new director for the newly created Code Compliance Department, which was formerly a division in the Police Department. Also for Code, there is an upgrade to an existing Code Compliance officer from a 1 to a 2. For the Finance and Budget Department, we are adding a new assistant director to oversee the budget operations. For General Administration, we are adding new or reopened positions to staff some newly created divisions like the Office of Grants Administration and the Office of Communications, PIO. Additional staffing enhancements for the general fund include a new director of general services to oversee the recently restored general services department that will now include facilities maintenance, Seminole Theater operations, Cyberium operations, fleet management, and asset management. An existing position is being upgraded to a facilities maintenance manager to oversee the Division of Facilities Maintenance. For the Innovation and Technology Department, we are upgrading an existing position to an assistant director and adding a new IT support analyst. For Parks, Recreation, and Open Spaces, we are adding 5 part-time Recreation Leader 1 positions. For the Police Department, we're adding 5 new police officers, which are partially funded with a COPS grant, adding an administrative coordinator to handle police-related grants, adding an administrative assistant for quality control data entry, and adding a part-time gym attendant for the PAL gym. And finally, for procurement, we're adding a new Fire 2 position. Total change to the general fund staffing is 18 new full-time positions and 6 part-time positions and 3 upgrades of existing positions. Staffing changes to other departments outside the general fund include, for the CRA, we are adding a new assistant director to focus on redevelopment projects and a new budget analyst to assist the department with its growing budget. For electric utility, we are converting 6 positions from contract temp positions to full-time positions. These positions include an administrative assistant, an associate customer project liaison, clerk 3, journeyman electrician 2, journeyman electrician 1, substation distribution engineer 2. For self-insurance, which is under the Human Resources Oversight, we are converting an existing contract temp to a full-time position for risk analyst. And finally, for customer service, we are converting 3 contract temp positions to customer service 2 full-time positions. To recap, the city is increasing its total staff by 30 full-time positions and 6 part-time positions. With these additions, the city's full-time staff will be at 503 and part-time positions will be at 83 for a total combined count 586. Please note that many of the part-time positions that work in parks, recreation, and open spaces are seasonal, and the part-time count also includes 41 police reserve positions. After this presentation, the first item to be discussed is the proposed millage rate for the fiscal year 2025 proposed budget. It is important to note that the millage rate only impacts the general fund and the CRA. At this time, let's take a look at the proposed millage rate. This slide provides general information about millage rates. By Florida law, the maximum allowable rate for the operating millage is 10 mils. The tentatively established millage rate reflected in the property owner's trim notices was 6.0206. The city's current fiscal year 2024 millage rate is 6.0206. Most of you received your trim notice showing the city's tax rate is 6.0206 mils. The first thing you need to know is that this was a tentative rate set at the same rate as the prior year. The proposed budget includes a proposed rate of 5.9604, not 6.0206. The proposed budget results in a decrease to the millage rate. So, to re-emphasize the point as recommended by Council, the proposed budget includes a reduction to the millage rate of 1%. Here is the millage rate history showing the recent reductions to the millage rate since fiscal year 2022. So let's recap. The priorities set out in this budget process have been achieved. A new code compliance department has been created by moving the division from the police department and under the oversight of a new director of compliance and enforcement. The general services department has been restored with a new director who will have oversight over several divisions moved from other departments. These include the facilities maintenance, Seminole Theater, Cyberarium, and fleet management. The department will also be responsible for the asset management and real estate. We created 3 divisions under the General Administration Department: the Office of Grants Administration, Office of Communications PIO, and the Community Development Division. The latter is expected to have oversight of home, SHIP, and CDBG. Parks has been restructured and renamed Parks, Recreation, and Open Spaces, PROS, by removing facilities maintenance, Seminole Theater operations, and Cyberarium operations. The department can focus on its core responsibilities, which is parks. Procurement 2 can now solely focus on purchasing and contracts responsibilities because fleet management has been reassigned to general services. ITS has been renamed Innovation and Technology Department, also known as DOIT, Department of Innovation and Technology. Finance has been renamed Finance and Budget to reflect its 2 core responsibilities. $85,000 in funding has been set aside for a consultant to assist the city to develop a strategic plan. Funding for several of the master plans can be found in the fiscal year 2025 CIP plan, while others are being funded with fiscal year 2024 available funds. For the citywide permitting code and business licensing solution, it's part of the fiscal year 2025 CIP plan. The city has earmarked $400,000 in ARPA funds and $138,000 in CIP funds for this solution. The proposed budget invests funds in 30 new full-time positions and 6 new part-time positions while providing possible enhanced benefits during 2025. And finally, for the 3rd consecutive year, the city is proposing a reduction to the millage rate, 1% for 2025. Council action required at this hearing includes the adoption by resolution of the operating millage of 5.9604 and a debt millage rate of 0.2580, adoption by ordinance of the proposed budget and the CIP plan, approval by resolution of the water and sewer rate increases for the CIP of 4.57% for fiscal year 2025, approval by resolution of the Miami-Dade County WASA pass-through rate increase of 0.2613% for fiscal year 2025. This is a reminder that the final budget hearing is scheduled for Wednesday, September 18th at 5:01 p.m. At this time, staff would like to thank the mayor and council for their valuable input, clear guidance, and full support throughout this year's budget process. In conclusion, I will now turn it over to the city manager for his final remarks. Immediately following the city manager's final remarks, we will move forward with a hearing in the order outlined in tonight's agenda. with the discussion of the millage rate being the first order of business.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Finance Director and staff, for such an excellent, detailed and profound presentation. At this time, we'll ask the mayor and the council to consider the millage rate as well as the proposed budget, while asking that you consider passing it. Keep in mind, like I said earlier, that we hope to come back in October to reflect on the county's revision of the verified property tax base, as well as a proposed mid-year budget amendment, which is something that will be new in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, and I certainly anticipate waiving the staff report on September 17th. We won't make you do the presentation again. Okay. Mr. Attorney, you'll read into the record tab 1.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Tab 1 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, establishing a proposed operating millage rate of ad valorem taxation and establishing a proposed millage rate for debt service on the general obligation bonds for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024, and ending September 30th, 2025.
Thank you, sir. Nothing to add at this point, correct? We've just, okay. I'll open it up to questions from council on the adoption of the millage rates. Any further? Let me see if there's any comment from the public on the adoption of the millage rate. Being none, I'll close the public. Susan, this is on the adoption of the rate of taxation, not the budget. All right, do we have a motion to approve the millage rate? Moved by Tannenbaum, seconded by the Vice Mayor. Anything further from council? All right, let's have a roll call vote.
Councilman Cannavale? Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Councilman Roth? Councilwoman Bailey? Councilwoman Avila? Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
All right, next item, tab 2, Mr. Pearl.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Tab 2 is the first reading of an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, adopting the budget for each of the several funds and departments of the city for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024, and ending September 30th, 2025, approving a capital improvement plan, providing for a repealer, severability, and an effective date.
Thank you, sir. Initial questions or comments from council. Who would like to kick off this discussion? Councilman Roth, have at it.
I just have one question. Carlos, could you go over all that again one more time, please? No, I'm happy. Thank you, guys. Thank you to the staff, to all the hard work you've put into putting this together for us, and the times that we spent going over this with staff. This is not the first time we've seen this. We've been over and over this many, many times, and by far one of the better budgets I've seen presented at this time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Davis? Councilwoman Avila?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank staff for doing such a great job in keeping us very informed and abreast of the budget preparations, various meetings and workshops. It definitely takes a village, and you guys did it well, so thank you for that. I'm very happy to see the allocation for on-site director under our building department. I'm happy to see the additional police officers, as well as the healthy budget for our parks. It's always been my priorities to focus on parks, our police department, as well as our process for development services. So I think that this budget achieves that. Obviously, there's so much to make sure that we're accounting for, and I think that we're handling it here. I want to make sure that we have the opportunity to keep some things in discussion over the next week or so, couple of weeks leading up to our final budget hearing. So I'll just rest there for now and take it from here. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. It's certainly a fully vetted and well-rounded and transparent budget and budget process. Councilman Cannavale? Let me go to Bailey. Councilwoman Bailey.
Thank you, Mayor. Now, echoing the same thing, I'm very excited for the new positions, always with PD, of course, and the new gym attendant at the PAL. I think that's going to be a big difference for our kids there. So just to clarify, we're not going over any of the specific events right
I'll
now,
get to
right?
that.
Okay,
In my comments, we'll take a deep dive into what was circulated.
perfect, thank you.
All right. Vice Mayor Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just kind of off the top again, overall, very well put together budget, but I do have a few concerns when it comes to some cost allocations that were in the capital improvement plan. I'm not going to bore everybody with those tonight, but I will say we're purchasing 36 new vehicles based off of this capital improvement, which is $5.2 million. And if you average that out, that's $146,000 per vehicle. Now, some of these vehicles cost a lot more than others. Okay. But we definitely need to look because there's some disparity between a Ford Explorer and one department, such as Electric Services Department, and then there's another one for, which actually is in next year for sewer, the sewer department, of about $16,000 difference for the same vehicle. Then, like the police new hire vehicles are $83,000, $83,700 apiece based off of this math. But then a canine vehicle cost $82,000, and I would think that would cost more than a regular police service vehicle. Again, I think we need to talk to one another. We need to reach out and find out what these actual costs are, so we're all talking apples to apples, because there are some disparities in here that we need to clean up. With that, I do have, again, some additional questions from the line-by-line budget, but I will do those individually through the manager's office so we can clear that out. With that, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, I have a couple of items that I think we need to talk about tonight, that if they're moved forward, that they'll be ready to come back in the final budget adoption, so that we're not here as we have been in prior years, where Carlos is counting on his fingers and toes and has his little portable calculator, and I don't mean this in a bad way, playing let's make a deal. Maybe I should say, well, what about this? What about that? And I hope we're not in that situation on the 18th. So I wanted to go ahead and vet these couple of items now. The first item I have is with respect to the city manager's salary. And as my colleagues, I think, all are aware, the manager took a $26,000 pay cut to come to the city of Homestead, versus where he was versus where we were. So on a pro rata basis, that, considering April 1 as a start date, that's $19,500. And I would like to have your support on, and I understand, I think there may be some funds available in the manager's contingency budget to make it, this is not a raise. This would be a one-time lump sum bonus during this calendar year of $19,500 to equalize the pay. And again, maybe this is something we need to look at the mid-year review, which is almost the time of his contract. But for myself, he has certainly proven his worth, and even at the additional amount, we got a bargain, and not just relatively speaking. So thank you, Councilman. So that's my first item as a proposed budget amendment to leave here tonight. I've circulated to each of my elected colleagues, the manager, the clerk, and the finance director. We had a slide here of special events, and I met with a couple of my colleagues that I could round up over a couple of different days, and had some sunshine meetings, and we took a deep dive into what was spent, what the actual expenditures were for some of these events in prior years versus what was budgeted. Speaking for myself, and I think the flavor of some of the others is that we're driving toward really supersizing and enhancing a couple of the really big events, one being the Christmas program in Lawson Park and some new functions here in City Hall, and our 4th of July. So you'll note here that a lot of the reductions that we have accomplished are dumped in big numbers, 4th of July and the holiday in Homestead. Most of the rest of the reductions or I say the reductions are really reflective of looking back to what was spent the prior year, rather than just, well, this is what we had last year in the budget. Let's do it again this coming year. And again, we've looked at those. One issue I have, though, and I'll clarify this. I think there was a request to add funding to the sponsorship for the Veterans Day Parade. And is this a correct distinction? These events are events put on by the city versus Veterans Day Parade, MLK Parade are sponsorships. So I don't know that this would be the location to do that, but I understand there's still the request that somewhere in the budget, there's still only the $3,000 sponsorship for the Veterans Day Parade. Is that correct?
The request was made from one of the council members asking for some of the special events funds, instead of spending so much on those, to putting
roll that
those
over into
aside and putting
sponsorships.
them for an increase to the sponsorship for the Veterans Day, to increase that when it's currently at $3,000, to increase it by $7,000 to 10, and then also to make a sponsorship contribution for the South Dade Connections. That's totally new. That's never been done before. That was also a request.
Okay, very good, thank you. So, and there's an unallocated, let's say what was before, it's an unallocated $81,000.
With the math that you gave me, it would be 96.
Well, the new math
The
is
new
less.
math.
The new math is less than that.
You'd have other about 96,500 with the changes you've made.
Okay, so there are funds that can be reallocated. So, there is a request for an additional 7 for the Veterans Day Parade. If it's the pleasure of council, we can go ahead and go through these. And this is drawn, these events are drawn from the staff-generated special events list. Any initial comments on, yes, Councilwoman Bailey?
Thank you, Mayor. Am I missing the Hispanic Heritage or the Fiesta?
That was not on the staff list.
So is that still going through Main Street, or?
That was on, I'm sorry, for the Haitian Heritage, that was one of the ones that on the slide was
Haitian
a
Heritage, yes, but
proposal.
Hispanic.
Yes, she said
Hispanic.
Hispanic Heritage.
I'm
Haitian
sorry?
Heritage.
Hispanic.
Oh, no, that one wasn't on there.
The Hispanic Heritage was a Main Street event in the past, the Fiesta USA, so that was not reflected in the city budget.
Are we no longer doing Main Street events?
The city does have an allocation for the Main Street contract, but there is not an additional budget outside of the Main Street contract.
Okay, do we have a specific budget for Main Street this upcoming year? I didn't see anything.
Yes, that's within the professional services or management consultant.
For, as the contractor,
Yes.
Main Street, yeah, not as a city-sponsored event in the list that we have.
Okay, but Main Street's budget
Yes.
remains the same as previous
Yes,
years, so
ma'am.
we can assume that was
Yes,
going to
ma'am.
continue.
And
Okay,
they
good.
did that event out of their
I just wanted to
budget.
make sure, because I think that was a really great one also to continue. And the only other clarification is for South Dade Connections. I think that a lot of their programming has been great, but for our specific sponsorship, I think we should consider in the Black History, the Black Business Month, for that to be specifically what the city is helping with, especially with our efforts with economic development. I think that specific event of theirs would help the city out the most, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and my concern, and I think some of the concerns of others, is that where does it end? I mean, South Dade Connections is in effect a black-oriented chamber of commerce. And this city, to my knowledge and recollection, has not supported the 110-year-old broad-based Chamber of Commerce ever. So, my question certainly is, what justifies it and what would they do
I wasn't
with,
the one that
with
made,
that amount?
I wasn't the one that made the
Okay.
request, so that's why I was just specifying,
That-
because I
that-
see
yeah.
how that would start,
Sir,
yeah, so, if we're not sponsoring
Yeah,
towards any specific organizations, then that shouldn't be in this category.
right. Councilman?
Yeah, just, I thought in the past that we did help and sponsor the South Dade Chamber of Commerce.
It's a membership fee that we pay them.
Then
And what is
likely,
that, what is the amount of that?
I'm sorry?
What is the amount of that membership fee that we pay? Just
Have
out
to
of
look it up.
curiosity. Yeah,
it's minimal.
Mr. Mayor, can I?
No, I get it. Yes, Mr. Manager.
So while he's searching for that information, the city also pays membership dues to the EDC, which will run in line with Southgate Connections. I know that Miami Foundation gives a lot of grants to Southgate Connection. So I think giving them, even if it's in something in appreciation of the great job they're doing in Southgate, I've been to some of their meetings. I see the nurturing, the guidance and hand-holding, pointing people in the right direction. Some of these small businesses, as CRA begins to look for economic empowerment and development, some of these businesses, when I talk to them, they have no clue how to go get money in downtown. And this group, the Southgate Connections, have been assisting them to point them in the right direction. So whatever little assistance the city can render them in this budget, I think it will go a long way to kind of help them out.
What was requested?
10,000.
10,000? Okay. So if we could get that number, maybe have it next time. If we can dig that out and circulate that, yes. And I probably, with respect to chamber events, each one of us have likely dug into our PR allocations and help the chamber there. Yes. Vice Mayor, did you want to weigh
You
in?
took the words right out of my mouth, because we're all supporting these different organizations as well from our personal accounts. So it's still an option we can do, and as well, we can continue to look for those corporate sponsors or event sponsors to help us out with other events throughout the city as well through our connections. That's all. Thank you.
Well, and, this is something, new to the table. And if we could get some detail as to what they might utilize an amount of money for, certainly I'm not interested in paying salaries or having friends and family do advertising for them. It's almost as if that to me is we're stepping out on that slippery ice to do that. And again, we do have that unallocated pool of money that we can come back. If we don't have the information we need in front of us by final reading, we come back.
Councilman, what was the organization again you were asking about?
South Dade Chamber of Commerce.
The dues is $220. That's it.
Yes,
Nothing.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Just as a refresher, and maybe that's where this came from, but when South Dade Connections came to speak to us right before the event, what I brought up was for the CRA to check within their goals to see if that was something that would line up for us to continue helping that be a yearly event. But I didn't mean for it to be under one of the special events, just to clarify.
Yeah. So, I don't know, you have changed tables. Change your hat, change tables. Is there room within your budget to do something
So
for South Dade
the-
Connections?
Yeah, the CRA, we cannot fund an event, but we can do like what we did this year, which was pay a fee to be present at the event and present in order to support CRA initiatives. That is certainly something that we can accommodate in the next year's budget.
And certainly, we all have the ability to accommodate refreshments or goodie bags or whatever
Can I?
that may be.
Can I?
Yes, Mr. Manager.
So I'm very familiar with these type of things, right? The Miami Foundation gives them money, but it's tied to economic empowerment, business incubation. So I think these are kind of ideas that the city can utilize in funding organizations like this, tied to business incubation, growth in expansion of their businesses, and perhaps professional and some specialized type of training for their employees, and not just to give them money. So if we create that niche, I'm not in support of using CRA money for one purpose. CRA money is meant to be spent within the CRA. So these organizations operate way beyond those confines. So it might be better to use city general fund money. I'm not advocating for something big, just something to show them that we appreciate what they're trying to do to revitalize the city's economic engine.
So like maybe $2,500 the first year, and have them come in and we'll talk about that incubator component, which here we are in the shadow of the former site of the incubator, which was a colossal failure. And isn't that what they do in part in that building, in the Miami-Dade College building, is an incubator of sorts?
They do.
I'm okay with $2,500. See how it goes. All right.
Let me just chime in just for a second. The whole thought process was to help them do what they do. It kind of goes with what you were speaking of earlier in the CRA budget of allocating the $130,000 towards business and industry and recruitment. And I can't name off the top of my head how many businesses that they nurture and mentor inside the city of Homestead, because there are a few.
30 this last one, 30.
There was 30 that are city of Homestead businesses? Right, so they are doing kind of what you were asking in supplying the mentorships and creating business opportunities within the city. Some haven't been able to get to the point of opening and doing certain things. Ouija Lanes is one of those, right, that didn't come to be. Maybe no fault of hers, but there was problems with the landlord and other issues there. But, and I was kind of thinking the same way with what we did with the soup kitchen last year. This doesn't have to be a yearly thing, but last year we gave an allocation of $10,000 to the soup kitchen, which is a human type service industry that they definitely need the money too. So this almost leads into your plan as to helping bring business and spur economic development in the city. So whether it's $2,500 or $10,000, at least we're showing them that we are supporting their efforts to stimulate economic development inside the city limits as well. So I would appreciate at least maybe doing the $10,000 this year. We can evaluate what they do. Maybe the manager would set up a program and do something that would help, show accountability for what they're actually doing too, and maybe even put together a list of the businesses that they're supporting inside the city of Homestead, because I think that's what we really need, the economic development.
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor?
So I can agree with that in theory, but again, I think if we start them off with a lower amount and have them come to us with a presentation of what they're going to use the money for, we're going to have additional funds to give out later that we might reallocate to them anyway. Let's start them out with one amount, and then as they come and they give us a plan on how they're going to spend the money, then we can make our final decision. But I think just arbitrarily picking a $10,000 number out of the hat just doesn't work, because next thing you're going to have the next person come in and ask for the same thing, and it just continues to beget those issues.
And
That's my thought process.
And I would agree, and he's fairly new to the party versus a soup kitchen who's been a known entity here for 43 years or so. Yeah, South Dade Connections is, yes.
Thank you,
Councilwoman
Mayor.
Avila.
Just another angle to look at it, and I don't compare this discussion to a donation to, like a human services program, but I do like the idea of dedicating funds towards business incubation. I don't think it's necessary for us to tie an entity to that allocation. and we can make it a case-by-case analysis, where if they have an event coming up for the first quarter of the fiscal year, it comes through the, city manager's request or through one of us, we submit it, it gets reviewed, and if it meets all the criteria for the program, it gets issued, whether it's South Dade Connections, whether it's Chamber of Commerce, or a different entity that provides the same kind of programming in the city. So I think that neutralizes the discussion on who's getting the award, but it does give us the added benefit of having the business incubation events budgeted. And if you do 5,000 a quarter, it's, what is that,
It's
20,000?
20 a year.
So you can start with just 10,000, and it's 2,500, and you can have the opportunity for 2 events a quarter, that's 2,500 each. So whereas not one entity is absorbing the entire amount, so it might promote some competitiveness as well as broaden the opportunities.
And
So-
through the manager, I would just like to add that the CRA could provide a match to a business incubation program. So if the general fund were to allocate 5,000, the CRA could also allocate 5,000 as long as those funds were utilized within the CRA for a CRA business.
Well, and let me, if I could ask our finance director, and this is about reallocating a special event pool of money, and this allocation would not be considered a special event. Do we have somewhere to pigeonhole this?
Yes, I'm looking right now at the public relations account in the general fund, and there's 2 line items that look like they're, one's general, public relations, and another one said South Dade Economic Development. So I think
Okay.
those could
That
be
seems to
used for
fit-
that.
That seems to fit the bill.
Yeah.
And Councilwoman, I kind of like your thinking there on the fly that we establish this this fund, first come, first serve, and if it meets the criteria espoused by the manager, that's probably maybe even an in-house funding. I don't even know that it is a council decision unless we want it to be. So in terms of an annual allocation, what'd you have in mind?
If you do the 5,000 a quarter,
Well, that's
That-
20.
that's 20, but if we want to start lower, we can start at 10. And then mid-year review, maybe we reduce it if it hasn't gone anywhere, or we double it if we really like it.
Well, yeah, 25.
I just like the idea that it's merit-based in what is the,
Yeah.
what are the funds going to actually do? And it's quarter by quarter, so they you can't use up the
Right.
whole amount in quarter one.
Correct, and I would think that, it's 2,500 per quarter, and each entity, would we put a cap on the annual allocation to an entity? You only get an award one time. You get $2,500, you're done for the year.
Right, and I like the idea of the CRA having the opportunity to match it if it's going to be a much bigger event, broader impact, specific to the CRA. So there is opportunity.
So potentially, the CRA may be on the, have the opportunity, not on the hook, have the opportunity to match up to $10,000 for that stated purpose. I think you had more.
Sorry, one last thing. Just as far as what you just said, that it only be given to one entity a year?
No.
Is that what you meant?
No, an entity is, under my suggestion, it would be $10,000 a year with an allocation of $2,500 per quarter, but that a given entity would be limited to $2,500 per year.
For the year.
And we could give them $1,250 in one quarter and $1,250 in another quarter, but however they do that,
No, I love-
$2,500 a year.
I really like where this is going, and I even spoke to South Dade Connections and told them it's really important to come back with the numbers of how it's affecting the city. So I agree completely. The only thing I would be worried about is if it's South Dade Connection, let's say, and South Dade Chamber, that are the only two that are hosting things that qualify. Do we want to limit it to one quarter per entity? Per year.
No, we can revisit that.
Yeah, sure. I just wanted
You know,
to
two
throw that out
quarters
there.
from now will be the mid-year, or, yeah.
Right. Okay. No, great.
And
Thank you.
we can
Plus,
do
our
that.
council budgets can also support too.
Sure, certainly. And then just to clarify, this special event budget for named events does not contemplate the Haitian heritage. That it doesn't mean we can't or won't, it's just not provided for at this time.
Mayor?
Yes.
For my contribution, I think this is an excellent idea, and also for a different reason. We're talking about these entities that we know, but there's a whole lot of non-for-profits that are struggling that do excellent stuff. That this will give them their opportunity to come forward and say, this is what we do. Don't you want to give money to it? And I guarantee there'll be non-for-profits you never heard of that are out there, or churches, what have you. The one recommendation that I would have is that we do construct a template, because a lot of non-for-profits talk in great terms of aspirational, kind of outcomes that they want to see and things they want to do, but they need to be able to say, we help this many people do this, and it needs to be quantifiable. We make that template up. Everyone fills out the same template when they come forward. And then that way they're at that level playing field, because again, some non-for-profits may have the assistance of people who have been doing the nonprofit world for years and years and years, and others, they don't. But I think this is a great idea, and I think we're going to be very pleasantly surprised by the variety of outcome that we see.
And I'm confident that this will be better advertised than this availability would have been in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Are there any other amendments or comments?
I'd like to make another.
Yes.
Sorry, you want to go? Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to just say, in general, regarding the special events, I've said it in the past in our workshop and on our one-on-ones, that I'm looking forward to having more of a global cultural events program, review and director in charge of planning and organizing this throughout the city and using our facilities, versus us kind of trying to pull from the air what programs are the best, what budget is appropriate. Because when you look at what was budgeted versus what was utilized, there's a large gap. And so it kind of leaves a lot of, question as to, what was the source of the budgeting plan and whatnot. But, and either way, just because we've had a certain program or a certain event for so long doesn't mean that it's, not stale, and maybe something different and something more unique and invigorating for the community would be appreciated, and a better use of the funds. So for now, I'm fine with these changes, but I would like to have more focus on that programming. We've discussed it in the past, but thank you. I'll rest there.
Mayor,
Yes, Mr.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
In your proposed changes, the one thing I just want to get clarity, one of the events last year when it was developed, it had a $10,000 donation attached to it. I don't see that here. Is that the intent?
Well, you're speaking of the soup kitchen?
Last year, it was specifically for the soup kitchen, but I think the idea when it was conceived is it would be a different organization every year.
Well, and again, that could be in the unallocated, and we can have a further determination.
Okay.
Yeah, but if we want to conceptually say that we will pick an organization to receive the $10,000 from the unallocated money.
Understood.
Now, so to clarify, the center column in the handout will reflect the budget approved if the amendment passes, subject to the remaining balance, whatever that number may be, being reduced by $7,000 to go over into another category for the Veterans Day Parade, and $10,000 to go over into another category for the Business Incubator and Development Program. Everybody clear? All right, so let's open it up to the public.
Hi, Susan Sorrentino, 2610 Northeast 3rd. I'm here because We need a public community arts center. I've been saying this for 8 years now. That's why I'm here tonight. I'd like to tell you why, and I have a good idea where it won't cost anything. Okay? So hear me out. I've been doing paint parties for 1 year now at Heritage Market. We were doing one a month, and now we're doing 2 a month. We hold 24 people in the upstairs room, but I've done them for 50 people downstairs. I worked with Pedro to get it done for our Dickinson Community Center. We started talking in, I guess it was March. He scheduled one for April. He bought the supplies, and we've done it every other month, so we've done 3 so far. We get 30 people sign up for it, and we pretty much fill the room, and it's wonderful. It's not just the regular paint party. I teach them to paint. I do one at Cybrarium once a month, and unfortunately, their room only holds 15 people. If they put it up to sign up on one day, the next day it's full, and we have 15 people waiting at the door for someone not to show up so they could take the chair. We did one a month this whole year, and we're down for 2 a month in December, and they're going to propose that for 2025. I do I did it at the Women's Club. It's not, it's not just a paint party. It's teaching art. It's community. I often sit there and I have students that don't speak English, and I don't speak Spanish, and language means nothing. I teach them, they understand, they hug me when I leave, and they come back and back and back. This community needs a community arts center. I have an idea, and I know that Dr. Zuri will find out a way to do it. And you don't know me very well, but I have confidence in you. The Public Art Flexible Master Plan. I was chairwoman of the Public Art Committee. I worked with David for 2 years during the pandemic, David Hennett, with the committee to develop this plan and get it approved. It's dated 1921. It's called Flexible Master Plan. And it's flexible. We could revise it. Back then, there was about $1 million in Art in Public Places fund. I see that you're spending only $100,000 now, be coming out of that fund, I would assume. Why don't we use Art in Public Places money to make a community arts center? All you have to do is revise this plan, all of you could approve it, to use these funds for art for the community. I suggest you do this in the Cybrarium for that 3rd or 4th floor. I heard last month that you found a way to finish the bathrooms and the elevators with some funds from the grants. I was so impressed. Thank you. This city has moved for 8 years like their feet are in quicksand, but not since April. So thank you, sir. I would like to see this community center at the Cybrarium. Now, let me tell you what it would look like. It would be one whole floor, and maybe not just art, maybe music. And it would be a gallery, it would be a stage where performers could perform, and this would support our locals. There are over 100 artists in Homestead. You wouldn't know it because there's no place to show except the Etc. Gallery and a 10-foot gallery. So this could be tremendous. You could have artists there working and teaching, and it would be wonderful. Our community is unbelievable on how you could walk into a room and 20 people not know each other, and by the end of 2 hours, We're cheering each other on for a paint stroke or something else, and they're all talking together. And it's not just for the seniors over at Dickinson. It's for the young people and families that are at Henderson Park, Heritage Market, I'm sorry. And over at Cybrarium, it's an adult paint party that I give. And we all get to know each other. And it doesn't matter. I have taught people who work in the fields, and they're sitting next to people who own the farms. And it's really a wonderful community thing. We need it. So if you can open that Cybrarium floor, one of the floors, to a community arts center, it would really serve the people. Leave it open till 10 o'clock. Open a coffee shop in there, and it'll be a meeting place for this city. I thank you.
Thank you. I'll let you roll over your time from last month. Okay. All right.
Mayor, we have one online.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Brandy online.
Go ahead. Hello, speaker, it's online.
Brandy? I'm trying, requesting to unmute, but it's not.
Can you hear me?
There it is.
We can now.
Thank you. Brandy Ramirez, 2231 Southeast 1st Street. Good evening to Mayor and Council. Would like to thank the city manager and his staff for doing an amazing job with the proposed budget. I definitely do want to speak in reference to the topic of the nonprofit subject. I'm glad to hear Councilman Tom Davis, who mentioned the template. That's a great idea, where it opens it up to longtime nonprofits that have been in the city of Homestead serving the community for more than 30 years. Being part of the Together for Children, we have tons of nonprofits that our Councilwoman Jennifer Bailey has worked well with, and we know that they're serving our Homestead residents with utility assistance payments. And South Bay Connections does great work too as well. Don't want to take that away from them, but I think it's a great idea for Mayor and Council to open it up for all nonprofits. And with the template, it's a great idea. I'm glad to see that our city manager supports this going on. And the last thing that I would like to say is that also supporting what my fellow Homestead resident Susan Sorrentino just said, great idea, great location idea as well. And she's right. Our new city manager, Dr. Zeri, can make this happen, whether it's that location or any other location. I believe strongly and have faith in our mayor and council and our new city manager that our city of Homestead residents will be served. They will bring new, fresh ideas for our community, for our youth, especially for the youth, and our elderly families. This would be great. So that's all I wanted to share, and thank you for the time. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez, appreciate it. Good night. All right, anyone else online? Anyone else in the audience? All right, I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion to approve on first reading, tab 2, the adoption of the fiscal year 2025 budget, subject to A, the one-time bonus for the city manager, and the allocated amounts in the center column of the handout, together with allocating away from the unallocated amounts here, the special event amount, for an additional sponsorship of 7,000, an additional 7 for a total of 10 for the Veterans Day Parade, and with $10,000 allocated as discussed to that public relations fund. So we have that motion. Moved by Councilman Cannonball, seconded by Councilwoman Avila. Are there any further comments? Let's have a roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Davis? Yes. Councilman Cannonball? Yes. Councilman Roth? Yes. Councilwoman Bailey? Councilwoman Avila? Yes. Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Good, thank you all.
Mayor.
Yes.
Just to go back a little bit on what Mrs. Sorrentino was speaking about, the vision of doing public art on top of the Cybrarian is something that I had thought about for many, many years. In fact, I think during one of our meetings, I mentioned with Zach that there was a location I walked into, I forget where I was. It was in Tampa, that it said, I think it was called Empty Spaces or something like that. And they fill up dying malls with exactly what she was talking about. They sublet the space to artists, and they go in, they do their craft, they have classes, they do all these things. And it does generate some revenues in some ways. So if it's a part of the overall plan to utilize the Cybrarium as a cultural center, right? We've created the first Cybrarium in the world, and we could back that up with arts-related activities as well, whether it be arts, whether it be drama, dancing, performances, or whatever. If we can, you know, with the blessings of the dais, maybe explore one of the floors. I don't think we need to do both of the floors, but one of the floors, and bring that back to us maybe with some ideas. I think it would be a great addition to the area, quality of life thing that would be added to the downtown area. I mean, it's sitting there vacant. We've allocated the monies to fix the building, make it where it could be tenable with the elevators and the bathrooms. I just think for quality of life purposes, for bringing more people to the downtown area, I think it's going to be very beneficial to at least explore that opportunity. Thank you, Mayor.
And certainly to that end, I know Sorrentino, every time there's an article about a community doing something like that, she saves it. So it's not like we're reinventing the wheel. And we can explore and investigate and make inquiry there and determine how that could be brought to fruition together with multiple other uses in that 30,000 square feet.
Second.
Yeah. All right.
And Mayor, if I can add to that,
Yes.
if I
Yes.
can add to that, I mean, the art just falls right into the whole STEAM initiative, so it just makes sense that it would be there. And I think the Cybrarium has a steampunk type of theme, right, on the second floor, so it just seems appropriate. But we want those floors to also generate revenue as well, so it's gotta have to have the dual purpose. Thank you.
Always add balance. Artists, that's why I call them starving artists. The money doesn't matter, just let me do my art, right? Okay, let's move on to tab 3. Mr. Pearl?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, tab 3 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, authorizing a water and sewer rate adjustment to reflect an increase in the Consumer Price Index as authorized by ordinance number 2020-08-04, providing for implementation and providing for an effective date.
Mr. Manager?
So this is something that the council had already authorized, that it should happen on a yearly basis. The increase is going to be 4.57% based on the CPI.
Very good, thank you. Any questions from council? Let's open the public hearing. Is there anyone online or in the audience? We'll close the public hearing. Do we have a motion to approve? Moved by Councilwoman Bailey, seconded by Councilman Cannonball. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Davis? Yes. Councilman Roth? Yes. Councilwoman Bailey? Yes. Councilwoman Avila? Yes. Councilman Cannonball? Yes. Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
And moving right along to tab 4, Mr. Pearl.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, tab 4 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, authorizing a 0.2613% increase of the rates charged for water, sanitary sewer services in order to defray the impacts of increased costs imposed on the city by Miami-Dade County, providing for implementation, providing for an effective date.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Manager.
So most of the wastewater that we generate in the city of Homestead is treated by our own utility, which has been a fantastic facility, winning a lot of prizes over the years. However, there is a segment of the wastewater collection that we have to discharge into the county system for treatment, just because we don't have enough capacity to do that. So this pass-through is to reflect the increase the county has done to its own rates for wastewater. I think it's approximately an increase of $42 per applicant, per entity per year.
For an average customer that consumes 6,000 gallons of water on a monthly basis, that's what it would be, yes.
Very good, thank you. Questions or comments from council? Open the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this item? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion to approve. Moved by the Vice Mayor. Second by Councilwoman Bailey. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Davis? Yes. Councilwoman Avila? Yes. Councilwoman Bailey? Yes. Councilman Ross?
Yes.
Councilman Cannavale? Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Yes.
Mayor Losman?
Yes.
The motion carried.
Very good, thank you all. Anything further, Mr. Manager, for this agenda?
None.
Mr. Attorney? Motion to adjourn? All in favor? We will convene the Committee of the Whole meeting in 5 minutes. All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to call the City of Homestead City Council Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, September 3rd, and it is, what time is it? 7:28 p.m. Let's have a roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Ross? Here. Councilman Cannavale? Here. Councilwoman Avila? Here. Councilman Davis? Here. Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Here.
Mayor Losman?
He left. I'm here. All right. Thank you. Mr. Manager, any additions, deletions, or deferrals?
None, Mr. Chair.
All right. We have before us the Committee of the Whole minutes of August 6, 2024. Approval moved by Councilman Roth, seconded by Councilman Cannavale. All in favor? Any opposed? Next item is tab 2, a motion to place car number 4369 on the Cal agenda, cyber library insurance. Mr. Manager?
I think we have some, Ms. Wendy? Oh, Mr. Jones, you want to step up to the podium?
Yeah. Yes. This be a consolidated presentation on all of the insurance coverages. We'll go ahead and do tabs 2, 3, 4, 3, and 4.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, my pleasure to be here. Tom Jones, 1780 North Chrome Avenue, Homestead, Florida. I stand before you with great news. On $1 million spend, you had a 1.6% increase on what I call the PIDGET, which is the Preferred Governmental Insurance Trust Insurance Package, and the cyber liability. So the actual spend was $1,064,564 compared to expiring of $1,047,640, increased 1.6%, or $16,924 on $1 million spend. So we were very pleased with that. And you may say, well, why did that happen, or how did that happen? Well, it happened for several reasons. Number one, your staff has done a great job. Priscilla Thompson over here, who I think is trying to retire on us, has done a great job along with Wendy and others and the department heads. The claim experience is improved over the years, so that has helped us. The insurance market has stabilized over the years, so that has helped us. So Michelle and I, Michelle Wilson, account executive here, my teammate, we went back to the carrier and said, we need to work on this a little bit. So we had 3 areas of coverage where we had rate decreases. The general liability, inland marine, and the employment practices liability. And those decreases were 10% on the inland marine, 10% on the general liability, and 20% on the EPLI, employment practices liability. So we had the relatively small, well, very small increase, despite the fact you had 11% increase in payroll and a 5% increase in employee count. So again, we were very, very happy with that. the heading on the agenda item says general liability insurance, but the insurance included in that budget package is the general liability, auto liability, public officials liability, employment practices liability, law and law enforcement. The excess workers' comp coverage is also in that, and that when I say the excess, you have a $250,000 retention, which is extremely low, meaning you pay the first $250,000, which is extremely low for a municipality that has the police department. So it's very attractive, and I don't want to use the word or the term you've been grandfathered in because that suggests you will always have it, but you have very low retentions. We have not had pressure from the company in terms of increasing them, although at the state legislature there is discussion about increasing sovereign immunity, and when that happens we may have another discussion. The cyber liability, by the way, the limits on the PIDGET program is $6 million, which is a strong limit, very good. The cyber liability is a $2 million limit, and again, those premiums came in 1.6% increase. I mean, I've got 400 pages of notes if we'd like to get into the weeds, but congratulations to the city, congratulations to staff and the team. It's a great renewal. Questions?
Questions from council? No. Thank you. And we don't want your 400 pages of notes because Carlos gave us his 400 pages of notes tonight.
He did. Congratulations, Carlos. That was a great presentation.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Okay, so we need well, we have to open the public hearing on each item. Well, let's open the public hearing on items 2, 3, and 4. Is it consolidated? No one online. We'll close the public hearing with respect to tabs number 2, 3, and 4. Mr. Attorney.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, a couple of the resolutions were printed to the wrong tabs. If I could just get a motion for clarity's sake that it's the council's will to move a resolution approving each of the policies onto the consent agenda, and that'll be corrected for the final council meeting.
Very good. So we'll just, on each item, we will move and vote on the car number.
That's
correct. All right. So we need this is tab 2, a motion to place car number 4369 on the agenda. Moved by Councilman Ross, seconded by Avila. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Moving on to tab 3. Need a motion to place car number 4368 on the council agenda. Moved by Avila, seconded by Roth. All in favor? And finally, tab 4, a motion to place car number 4364 on the council agenda. Moved by Bailey, seconded by Cannibal. I'm sorry, Avila. Seconded by Cannibal. All in favor? Thank you, Mr. Jones and your team. Appreciate it. Feel free to bail out while the getting's good. All right, moving right along to tab 5. This is a motion to place car number 4384 on the council agenda. It's the Transportation Master Plan. Mr. Manager.
So, Mr. Mayor, council members, this item is to actually authorize myself and staff to accept the proposal and also to execute the agreement to Kimley Horn and Associates, which is an engineering consultant, to schedule them for development and preparation of a 20-year transportation master plan in accordance with RFQ 201307, professional architectural and engineering services. The fiscal impact is $269,000, and it's going to be funded from the PTP, which is the People Transportation Program Fund. And the applicability is citywide. The data that they will generate will allow us to analyze residential development moratorium, as well as to how the impact is, and as well as updating the 2006 Transportation Master Plan. That's how far back the city had a Transportation Master Plan. So this is going to be an update as well as a new plan that will establish long-term vision to organize connectivity and access for Homestead residents, workers, and visitors. Now, this is going to be coordinated with the TPO in downtown Miami as well as FDOT in terms of having a seamless transportation master plan for state, county, and local streets. We look forward to working with the consultant, and they are known as a national transportation company.
Very good, thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Councilwoman Alvarez.
Thank you, Mayor. This will include evaluating our trolley services, correct?
The entire gamut, the entire system of transportation is vehicular, bicycle, of course, pedestrian, freebie, all types of modular transportation systems citywide. I think there was something they are offering to do in terms of the transportation master plan. We keyed into segments of 5-year audit to make sure there's immediate trigger for reassessment, depending on how fast the development is going in the city.
Thank you. And if I could just add a request to include evaluating the alternative modes of transportation, like scooters and whatnot. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We will, but I must caution you that scooters are not really fanciful these days. Thanks.
Okay, anyone else? Let's open the public hearing. Close the public hearing. We have a motion to approve. Should have moved by Avila, seconded by Cannonball. All in favor? Any opposed? Moving on to tab 6, and this is a motion to place car number 4353 on the council agenda, the Homestead Regional Park Cultural Facilities Grant Program application. Mr. Manager.
So this is actually a resolution of support by council to enable the city administration to submit a grant application. There is a matching fund of $1 million. Like I tell staff, this is $500,000 we don't have. So if we get the grant, it's fantastic. So the grant is in the amount of $500,000 on the condition that the city will match with $1 million, which is a 2-to-1. This is for the Homestead Regional Park, which is the famous Homestead Sports Complex. And the funding is specifically meant for the construction phase of the project.
Thank you. Moved by Councilwoman Alvarez, seconded by Vice Mayor Fletcher. Let's see if there's any public input. Close the public hearing. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? Next item is tab 7. This is a motion to place car number 4352 on the council agenda. This is Seminole Theater Building waterproofing. Mr. Manager.
This is a construction project for Seminole Theater Building waterproofing in the amount of $163,000 with a 10% allocation for unforeseen conditions. It's already budgeted in the capital improvement plan and is being funded with both CDBG funds as well as a grant from the states. We're hoping to finish this project in 90 calendar days. So hopefully it should be done by the end of the year. And there is liquidated damages for any day they delay the project for $580 a day.
Tremendous. Thank you. Questions, comments? Yeah, Mr. Vice Mayor.
So is this going to bring the building up to par, and we are currently at like phase 0 of any future items until something new breaks?
I don't think, Vice Mayor, I'm not sure anyone can actually predict the future by telling you nothing is going to happen. However, this is in response to an engineering assessment that made a recommendation to do this. So we're following the assessment report while believing that this is the solution that we need. However, remember, groundwater is a problem in South Florida. As you wrap a building and make it waterproof, there's always that likelihood that there will be groundwater intrusion, which you cannot do with what we're trying to do. So, which if you have an insurance, but Mr. Jones is gone, they will always tell you that groundwater intrusion, there's no coverage for that. They will cover you for water intrusion on the wall, the roof, the windows, and the doors. They've come in from under. All bets are off.
And for clarification, this is the treatment that needs to be completed before the Everglades murals are commenced? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Very good. All right. Is there anyone in the audience or online wishing to speak on this matter? So I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion to place this on the council agenda. Moved by Councilman Cannonball, seconded by Councilwoman Avila. All in favor? Any opposed? Next item is tab 8, and this is a motion to place car number 4380 on the council agenda. This is regarding the SOS use of the police department facility. Mr. Manager.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this is simply a housekeeping item. We're not doing anything extraordinary other than getting the SOS folks to have the confidence that they are permitted to be where they are, which is a revocable license agreement. It's a wonderful program. We want to make sure that they continue to stay where they're staying by giving them the peace of mind that they have the city's permission to be where they are.
Very good, thank you. Is anyone online or in chambers wishing to speak? So I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion to approve. Moved by Vice Mayor, seconded by Councilman Cannibal. All in favor? Any opposed? Moving to tab 9, motion to place car number 4375 on the council agenda. And this is the FMPA Homestead Solar Project Participation Agreements. Mr. Manager.
So the city previously had a contract with the FMAPA to buy electricity from them. This item is simply to reopen the agreement and have it expanded, just not from traditional sources of energy, but also to include clean energy resources for our utility, which means what? Solar. And it's going to give us, I believe, substantial savings. I believe there's a representative from FMPA, Mr. Chris Gowder, who's here with us tonight. If you want to say a few words, I think he traveled all the way from Orlando to come for this
After
meeting.
what he just had to sit through, we've got to let him talk, and we'll give him a medal. Come on down. Good evening. Welcome to Homestead.
Mayor and Council, and thank you to Ms. Quinones for the invitation to speak. I had a presentation I can go through or not, just on the background and history at your pleasure if you'd like, or I can just summarize.
How long is the presentation?
A few slides, but I can try to just...
You came all this way. Let's do it.
All right. Do we have a clicker?
We're going to start vetting presentations from cows.
All right, so Florida Municipal Power Agency, FMPA, is, the role of FMPA is to help facilitate joint action among municipal utilities. So all right, thank you. We facilitate joint action among municipal utilities around the state, electric utilities. So the Florida Municipal Solar Project is one of those such joint actions where we came together with many cities around the state to build larger solar facilities for the benefit of the municipal utilities. And I will spare you some of the detail and background. We'll try to move through this. I realize we're the last on the agenda here. But when the amendments here are finalized, which other cities around the state are currently today also considering, there'll be 14 cities involved, 7 solar facilities, and 2 developers that are producing solar renewable energy for us. Homestead's been a participant, the city of Homestead, in all 3 of our phases. Unfortunately, the first phase, the project that you participated in, got terminated. It faced challenges with site development and conditions of that site, as well as cost pressures. The second phase, began producing test energy last week, and will become commercial here within the next month or so. And then Whistling Duck, the second facility in phase 2, is the one we're here to discuss amendments regarding. And then our phase 3 has also been wrapped into this amendment, and you'll find out why in a moment. But there's a total of about 15 megawatts that the city is looking to procure from renewable energy. So Origis Energy, the developer of the Rice Creek and Whistling Duck facilities, came to us with concerns about the viability of the project. They're facing cost pressures and timeline pressures from not only being able to interconnect the facility to the transmission grid, but also getting the labor necessary to produce to build the facility. And so they were facing delays and potentially asking to terminate that agreement as well. So we've renegotiated with them along with consultation with the other participants to keep it alive, extend the commercial operation date a little further, but it does come with a price increase. Because of that price increase, 8 of the 12 participants in that facility have decided they no longer want to participate. In consulting your staff at the utility, they thought they would like to proceed, and so we have included them in this amendment. We have a total of 6 facilities with Origis Energy across multiple phases of this project, and as a result of those 8 members deciding they no longer want to participate, one of them will be terminated. And then additionally, we have an exchange agreement that allows us, because we have facilities that are connected to the FPL transmission system and facilities connected to the Duke transmission system, agreements that allows us to exchange that power among the cities and save in transmission costs. So this is a quick look at the before and after these amendments for the city of Homestead. The 2.5 megawatts in Rice Creek that I mentioned began operation last week stays the same. 2.5 megawatts that's in Whistling Duck, that gets a price increase, around a 20% increase. And then the 10 megawatts that you had in phase 3, no price change there, but there will be a site change. The source of the energy will be changed to deal with that one facility that's being terminated, as I spoke about. All of those, you'll notice, are under the general cost of electric service for the city. I'll spare you the details of this chart, but this was the number of cities involved and the number of facilities, and it's been reduced to something a little more concise. And you can see City of Homestead highlighted or bolded there. The change that we're making is pulling some of your participation from previously the Hampton facility into that Whistling Duck facility, and that's a benefit, I believe, to the city, because out of all of the facilities being built, that one is probably the furthest along in production and the most likely to not face further challenges once this amendment is finalized. So we've kind of weighted that with 9 megawatts in Whistling Duck and the remaining 3.5 in a future facility that will come online at the end of 2025. So we're targeting final approval for all of the cities involved. There's 12 cities that have to get various approvals. As I said, a couple are doing that tonight as well. Once all those cities have their approvals, FMPA's board and executive committee will be looking to approve the final agreement on September 9th, but we need all the local approvals before that. I believe your next council meeting is the day before that, if I'm correct, on the 18th. So there's 3 agreements involved in this for the amendments to take place. There's an amendment to the Solar 2 project contract, which it revises the shares in Whistling Duck I spoke about, as well as the price. Rice Creek in that agreement stays the same. Amendment 1 to the Solar 3 project removes the Penn Holloway agreement, which doesn't necessarily directly affect the city of Homestead, other than it reallocates some of the other facilities involved in that phase. And then the energy exchange agreement that I spoke about. That is all the information I had, and unless there are any questions, I'd be happy to take those.
Well, again, thank you. Any questions or comments from council? We good? All right. So I guess, Mr. Manager, to confirm, the bottom line is even with that one price increase, we're still confident that allows us to provide power at the lower rates we enjoy now, overall.
So I think it's appropriate for me to ask Mr. Chris Gowder, are you comfortable that, or confident that the city of Homestead is going to receive a reduction in costs in terms of these new changes in the contract?
Even with the increase?
With regard to solar, compared to your alternatives, I can't speak to. I'm not an expert in your entire stack, but I believe that's the case. For solar, if solar and renewable energy is important to your portfolio, I do believe this is the best available price that you will find at this moment. If we were to go out for a request for proposals today, it's likely that it would be another 20 to 30% higher than this. So.
Appreciate that. And we'll let the record reflect that our utilities director's head is shaking, you know, in the affirmative and smiling. All right. Is there anyone in the public wishing to speak on this matter? I see none. I'll close the public hearing. If there are no further questions from council, I'll ask for a motion to approve. Moved by Councilman Avila, seconded by Vice Mayor Fletcher. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And I believe that brings us to the conclusion of the agenda. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just one thing for clarity. I was very interested in the franchise fees that we collect from FP&L. And if there's contracts that get renewed or how those fees get negotiated, I'd be interested in learning about that process. And then if we can get somebody to go look at 328th Street and 167 Avenue just to the east, there's a part of the sidewalk that's becoming encumbered with overgrowth, vegetation. It makes it almost impassable for people on the sidewalk. Just a quick glance at that and see who's responsible for taking care of that area. That's all. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Manager, anything further?
No.
Mr. Attorney, do we have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councilwoman Avila, seconded by the Vice Mayor. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you all. Good night.